So then I got into the incident, and they were setting up all these sprinklers, and the pumps were running. Nobody was there. They were all down, doing something else on another structure. And I rolled up and I go, let me check this stuff out. Structures, they had water hitting the sidewalls, which I'm not a proponent of at all, of these log cabins. And I looked inside some of the windows. I tried the doors. I always look. Honesty and integrity, that kind of stuff is built into me right now. Moral, legal, and ethical. So I don't hesitate to look in to see what's going on, but I couldn't get in. They were all locked. But I looked in the windows, and they were already flooding the structures.
This is the Wildfire Lessons Podcast, where we promote learning by revealing the complexity and risk in the wildland fire service. We share the lessons. The learning that follows is up to you. Hello, Travis Dotson here, and I am very excited to bring you another episode of the Wildfire Lessons Podcast. And on today's episode, we're going to be hearing about structure protection. I'm very excited about this episode because of how tangible it is, how many good, just solid lessons that are very operational, very tactical, kind of how to get in there and do it type of stuff. And it's kind of interesting because we all get assigned to structure protection at some point, and we all do it. We all get there and somebody orders a sprinkler kit, and we look at the kit, and there's always somebody that's done it before, and you just kind of get to it. But we don't have classes that are specific to this, and a lot of us kind of make it up as we go. But there are some real specific things that we should know about this very specific skill set. And you're going to hear them here today on our podcast with a very special, knowledgeable guest. Yeah, let's just get right into it.
Welcome to the Wildland Fire Lessons Learned Center podcast. My name is Eric Appland. I'm the Field Operations Specialist at the Lessons Learned Center. And with me today is Hunter Bell, who, among many accomplishments in his career, published a blog with us this spring about structure protection and using sprinklers in a way that protects structures without flooding them. So Hunter, welcome, and why don't you tell us who you are and what you do?
Good morning, Eric. That's a pretty good open-ended question. A lot of people wonder that. One of the guys on my Northern Rockies team always says to me, Hunter, we think you're doing a really great job. We just don't know what it is you do. So that's my assignment on the team. I'm a structure protection specialist with Northern Rockies, Team 1 presently. But for what I do and where I come from, I live in Ely, Minnesota now. I live up on the edge of the Boundary Waters. I'm an AD with the U.S. Forest Service, sponsored by the Superior. Not always have I lived here. My wife and I moved here in the summer of 2019, just because she wanted to get back here, mainly for, being with old friends. And I don't mind living by the lake. I have to tell you that. That's been a pretty nice bonus. But prior to that, we lived in a little town a little community outside of Roberts, Montana. It's just north of Red Lodge, between Red Lodge and Billings. For about 30 years there, we built our own house there and had a nice piece of property. And so we were there for a while. And then prior to that, I bounced around. Lived in Minnesota back in the 80s, where I met Kathy, my wife. And then I bounced around with the Outward Bound. I worked at Outward Bound, and we traveled with that. So Montana, Texas, and Minnesota and Canada were my travel spots for that prior to that. So, yeah, I've had a varied career. Currently, I like to say I work part-time. I'm not retired. I do the structure protection gig in the summer, or whenever somebody calls. I do some teaching locally especially at the Minnesota Wildland Fire Academy every year. I teach the 215 class there. The stuff that I do in the winter and sometimes in the fall and sometimes in the spring, I try to change things in the fire service. Specifically related to structure protections. Over the years, since I've been in the business, I was picked up by Northern Rockies Team 1 in 2018. And I'm going to run off track here a minute, Eric, but I'm going to dig into some Civil War stuff here, because I love what participating in the L580 stuff at Gettysburg, and Chickamauga and Chattanooga. And I'm going to bring up a guy named John Wilder, Colonel John Wilder. He was a colonel in the Federal Army, worked in the Army of the Cumberland, and he was in charge of an infantry brigade, which is a couple thousand dudes, and they were assigned in 62 and early 63 to chase around Confederate cavalry. The Confederate cavalry was on horseback, and his infantry was on foot, so he was like, this is crazy. So he proposed the idea to get all the dudes in his unit, horses, mules, whatever, to get them there so they could travel faster or get to the incident rested and then get off their horses, ponies, whatever, and go to work, fighting the cavalry from the other side. And so that was an idea that he had, that he'd seen it somewhere, and he just picked it up and made it happen. And so I like to think I'm a little bit like that guy. He also saw a demonstration of the Spencer repeating rifle, the 7-shot repeating rifle, in the spring of 63 from the Spencer Rifle Company and Repeating Arms Company. And so he saw that and he was like, I'm going to get my dudes some of these rifles because you can fire 6 or 7 shots really fast in 30 seconds. So he went out and he had that idea and he made it happen. So in a lot of ways, I think I'm a little bit like Wilder. I see a better idea out there and I'm trying to bring it in so that we can do a better job of protecting structures and critical infrastructure. So that's my little Civil War tie, and I love that stuff. I can talk about that stuff in another podcast someday, but probably not. Probably not with you guys.
Let me guys going back. Can you circle back on, you kind of got into your life, getting to Ely and stuff. But how did you first get into wildland fire?
So back in Montana, I was a general contractor, pounding nails. If you saw the article that was in the blog, I talked about it a little bit. I worked pounding nails, like a lot of guys in the summer, year round out there. And so I had time on my hands as a general contractor, and I saw some fires in the area that were happening. One of them was a huge grain elevator fire in my town. Oh, wow. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. I could probably help out there at the local volunteer fire department. And then there was a couple of wildland fires that were significant in the area. And I was like, well, I could probably help out. And my whole goal there, so I joined up on the volunteer fire department deal, filled out the application and everything, and showed up, and they give you everything you need on the first day, and you're ready to go. Well, you know how that goes. But anyway,
yeah. So
I signed up and did the gig there with the volunteer fire guys. Started moving up through. I kind of liked it. It was kind of fun. Great guys, as always in fire. Great guys. I started getting involved with this wildland stuff because out in Montana you have to do both. It's not like a city department with a 500-gallon pavement queen. You're going to grab a hydrant, do a structure. You're going to do that sometimes out there, but a lot of times you're going to go out and grab a Type 6 or a Type 3 and go out and do brush fires. So we did a lot of that out there. Montana's known for it. Some years are bigger than others, and so I got going on that. Started building my quals through the Montana DNR as an emergency firefighter through their program, which is just another part-time gig. Call when needed type thing. And I started doing that, started working my way up. And I got my first engine assignment as an engine boss with them to go to the Okefenokee.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Down in South Georgia, And so that was super exciting for me to go down there and take some crew down there and go, fight fire in the Okefenokee. So I started working my way up through the DNR on that track. I had another track where in my fire department, I was appointed chief. I forgot what year that was, but I got the position as chief, started a new training program, started standardizing equipment. I started spending more and more time in the summers traveling for fire. Either, the engine boss thing, the task force leader thing, strike team leader, division trainee, that kind of stuff up to STIPs. And started traveling with those guys a lot more. So I was gone most of the summer. My wife was like, I don't get it. You're supposed to have this contractor job. I'm supposed to be building, remodeling houses. And here you go out and you're going out and fighting fire. Well, by 2009 or 10, I was kind of bored with pounding nails, and I only did that in the winter anymore. And I kind of got rid of my company and went to work for other guys as a hired gun, so to speak, and did that with those guys. And so About in 2013, as I was working on my division task book, I got an assignment, and my actual gave me an eval at the end. He said, Hunter, you got this deal, this division thing kind of figured out, but I think you need to work a little bit more on the working with crews and such whatnot. And I said, I get it. I'm not a crew guy. I don't understand. I had 2 hotshots crews on my division that year outside of Ennis, Lewis and Clark and Lolo. And so I took that to heart. I went home and I said, how am I going to get this experience working with crew? Well, I called up Lewis and Clark, the assistant soup up there, Willie Knutson, and said, hey, dude, remember me? I said, I'd like to, come along and see about this hotshot thing. And so in 2014, I got picked up as a fill with Lewis and Clark at the ripe age of 52.
Wow.
Yeah, it was great fun, great. I've never been in that kind of shape in my life before. Did that. Matt Holmstrom, the superintendent, at the end of that fill year in 2014-15, he sent me a nice letter and said, hey, if you want to be on the crew, let me know. And I went up there and had lunch with him the next day and got on the crew in 2015 as a GS4.
So they picked you up in 14 as like for a role, like a 2-week role, or was it for longer than that?
So they wanted me to come up and do the cohesion and critical. Willie thought they could bump me out because they weren't going to pay me to be there for 4 weeks, and they thought, here's this old guy. We're going to see if he's got his, he can cut the mustard. And so I cut the mustard and I did it for free, and it was great. And so it was, they were like, wow, this guy's got some stuff. And so I got an opportunity to do one roll that year on some goat rock country outside of Thompson Falls. And it was great assignment. Had a lot going on. We had somebody burned us out below us, and we all dove off the mountain. We got to see the assistant soup turn down an assignment because it made a big impression on me. Turned down an assignment because the only values at risk were us. It was just a little piece of little tiny little fire up on the side of a hill with cedars falling all night. That whole thing. You got up the next morning and goes, yeah, we're not doing this. We're hiking out. So we hiked out. So I got to see a lot of good stuff there, and I enjoyed it. And kept trying to go again and again, but the timing just never worked out. So I got one roll, solid 2 weeks, and then Matt hired me the next year. GS4, Kmart bin, back left seat in the buggy, Bravo buggy. Tried to do it again in 16, but my back at age 53 or 54 now said, no, this is enough. You got to go back home and do the thing. So I went home, finished up my division, signed that off, started working on my structure protection. That's where I was going my whole time, is the structure protection route, because I felt like that was a way for me to contribute, because I brought in my wildland fire career, the stuff I'd learned there, and the structure protection that we were doing, and that kind of stuff, and I could tie it in with my building career, where I knew sidings and vents and roof materials and all this other, how logs react, how different materials handle water, how different materials are applied. So I put those two together, and thus I ended up in structure protection way back when. We all do structure protection, dude. Everywhere we go, we're doing structure protection. It doesn't matter. We wouldn't be fighting fires right now the way we are if it wasn't for structure protection. So for me, it's been a great run, and it's not over yet. I hope to continue to do it for 6 or 7 more years. But anyway, so I came off the crew, got picked up by the BLM in Billings as an AD then to get sponsored by those guys. Herb Leach was up there as the FMO, and we were buddies. And he said, yeah, we'll sponsor you, be on my team as a division and structure guy. And so I did that for a couple of years, and then he retired, and I jumped on with Northern Rockies Team 1. Brent Olson said, hey, Hunter, we need a structure guy because our guy is retiring this year. And so he gave me an opportunity in 2018, and I jumped on it. And it's been a great ride with those guys. They've been super supportive. Ollie's supported me in this whole effort to change what I'm trying to do right now with you in the system. He's supported that 100%. The team has supported me. Like I said, they don't understand what Hunter does, with the structure protection thing, but that's the way it goes. It's a unique position on any team, being a structure protection guy. I look for people like me to help me in my job, because you have the structural component of your day job. You're typically the guys I have in my group. I have 4 guys in my group on my team who do so they agreed to come on and join the team to be part of the structure group, knowing that they're going to be assigned structure protection. So they're all like me. They came from structure departments with a wildland background. And so that's a unique experience there for those guys. But they fit right in, with that skill set with the other guys, the forester, the green guys, who want to go out and burn all line all day long and get up in the hills. And we're happy to be down with the structures and that kind of thing. And as I tell people all the time in class or wherever, the structure protection group is the face of the fire, because typically we're down in the structures and the homeowners are sometimes still there. And so we have this unique opportunity to tie in with everybody on a first, on a first name basis, or get to know each other, see each other work, answer questions. There's a page in my little handy dandy about customer contact and what new guys should be saying to homeowners when they encounter homeowners, because I want them to say the right thing. I want them to, tell them, well, they need to, do this or that or the other thing.
Cool. Well, no, I appreciate that. It's definitely a unique background. And I think in particular, when I think of a typical or stereotypical maybe structure protection group, I do think of, municipal engines. I live in California. We see a lot of Cal OES stuff, from big cities, LA County, whatever. But I don't know how often you would combine folks with that kind of background with also kind of the builder background, where you actually understand the construction of all these different kinds of well, not just homes, everything, businesses and everything else, and sort of understand what's inside those things. So I can see why, you had this passion to move in this direction, because you didn't just have the, fighting fires or putting out structure fires, but actually also the other side of it and understanding what we could do better, but also what we were maybe doing wrong with this structure protection stuff, which kind of leads me to the second question I have here, which is, why did you send us your blog back in, was it January? Something like that.
December. I sent you the blog because you guys are the go-to guys. I've been getting your emails, your blogs, the Two More Chains for years now, the recordings and listening that way, and other Holmstrom got me involved in that. Before I went to work for Matt, I wasn't so focused in on the bigger world of, the history of the fire, the big tragedy fires and that kind of stuff. I mean, I'd read some of the books, but not when I went to work for him. He put a different emphasis on stuff, and so I started looking differently at things, and I'm trying to push that out to other people. But so I said, if I'm going to get this done, I'm going to have to get some more advertising to get this, because I can send out 1,000 emails, and they'll go to the junk box because I have a Gmail account, or they don't get through the firewall or whatever, And so I thought, let me try this, and so I sent an inquiry into the form that you guys have there, and Erin immediately, who was detailed in there, I think.
Erin Hurley, yeah.
Erin, she was there, and she immediately pinged back. And I was like, whoa, I got a live one. I was super excited. And so then I started getting emails from her, from Travis, and I got some stuff from Travis that said, hey, we're going to, put it out as a blog post probably, and he gave me a date, and there it was, and that's how it came out. So I was super excited about that. The way I got there to really get this article going to you guys at LC is that in the fall of 24 last year, late summer, fall, we were on an assignment in Du Bois, Wyoming. And if you read the blog I did, it talks about that a little bit in there, and I won't rehash it. But there's a bunch of dudes there, men and women, working their hardest to try and do the right things on these structures. And we came in, and the IA folks were there doing their gig, and they were setting up the sprinkler kits, the old classic sprinkler kits that everybody gets in the country, the green flag with the orange stakes, that kind of thing. You've seen them all over the country, from Arizona to Alaska, and from Florida to California. They're everywhere. I think somebody told me the other day there's like 25,000 of them in the country of these kits. Wow. That's a lot of stuff that we're using. So I rolled in there, and I was excited because there was a gal on the incident who was really doing a great job at field maps. As I'm flying in, I'm looking at my field maps, getting my essay on what's on the ground and the structures, like I always do, and there's a gal in there putting in great data on all the structures. Like, oh man, this is super good. I got somebody there that knows what they're doing. And then then I got into the incident, and they were setting up all these sprinklers, and the pumps were running. Nobody was there. They were all down, doing something else on another structure. And I rolled up and I go, let me check this stuff out. Structures, they had water hitting the sidewalls, which I'm not a proponent of at all, of these log cabins. And I looked inside some of the windows. I tried the doors. I always look. Honesty and integrity, that kind of stuff is built into me right now. Moral, legal, and ethical. So I don't hesitate to look in to see what's going on, but I couldn't get in. They were all locked. But I looked in the windows, and they were already flooding the structures with the sprinkler stuff. And the fire was miles away. Right. And then they were just, I don't know if they were testing them or they were running them just to get the fuel moisture built up. That's all they knew how to do. But I got them to turn it off, and I said, we'll talk tomorrow when the team takes the incident. And when the team took the incident, we had our morning breakout, and I said, guys, here's the deal. I introduced them to my guys, Dan and Scott, and I said, we're going to break you up into 2 divisions, one up here at this subdivision, one at that one. You guys are going to go in and reset everything because we don't put waters on structures, and we have some ideas on how to set those sprinkler heads that we get so that you can get the water next to the structure without wetting the structure. So we went out the next day, and they went to work. They didn't balk. They didn't say, screw you, I'm not doing this. I'm going to go. I want demob. They all went out and they all grabbed it. They all spent 2 or 3 days resetting everything with clear leader's intent. I don't know how many structures there were. Probably there weren't a ton, maybe 60, 65 structures in there. Each, like 25 in one and 40 in the other, or something like that. Some somewhere along those lines. And so they did it all, and they would test them, and then they'd come back the next day. A lot of these had cedar roofs, big cedar roofs. So they were trying to figure out how to get water up there. And you and I were talking yesterday about the Iwo Jima pole. They would cut a 20-foot sapling where they put the sprinkler head on the top and raise that thing up and get that thing high enough so it got on the roof and came down as rain. So, I was excited. Our guys told them how to do that. And then through the course towards the end of the incident, all those engine guys were coming up to me or my 2 division guys or the team members who were out there, the safety, saying, we didn't know how to do all this stuff. Nobody's ever told us not to put the water on the sidewalls. Nobody's ever said that. Nobody ever said how to set these sprinklers up so that you can get the water better next to the structures. And I took that to heart. I was like, these are good kids. They're good people. I say kids. I'm 62. Maybe I'm 63 now. Sorry, I lose track. And, these are guys who are in their 20s and 30s, they're doing the best they can. And I get it, they're trying hard, and I'm working with them. I give them my handy dandy, they all got a copy of the handy dandy, every one of them. And so they understood that component of my life. And I came back with a renewed enthusiasm to get this project that I'm working on with you and with the cash system and with the Technology and Development Center and those kind of folks. I was renewed in my efforts to get that done. I was like, I got to keep moving on this because I've been dealing with this since I think 2000. I think I remember 2014 when we were on some structures on the crew, and we came up and there was water getting dumped on the structures. And I was like, guys, we got to. So I was fixing stuff then, just not to the level I am now.
Right, exactly. That was more wherever you were assigned and happened to see it. Right, yeah.
That people looked at me on the crew. They were like, "Hunter, you're a structure guy. You came off the structure department. What do you know about this stuff?" And I said, "That's what I'm going for, guys." So they let me kind of build a plan. The reason I came to you is because I'm trying to change the technology and the equipment, the water handling equipment that we're using on the structure protection component of wildland fires. And that's my sole reason for doing this. And the reason for wanting to change it from the sprinkler heads that we have in the system now, which are just a simple impact sprinkler head that goes around 360 degrees, no other options. You can't stop it. You can't. It just goes around and around and around.
You can't change like, with a sprinkler you can get at Home Depot or something like that. There's some that you can set them so that they just do kind of an arc. They do a half circle, that kind of stuff. And with the standard stuff you're saying that we get from the cache, it's just now you set it up and it's just going to do a circle every time.
Yeah, and so the stuff that we get in the cache, it's a great kit. They've got some great stuff in there. They got the orange stakes, and they got some garden hose. They got some inline tees. They got some reducers. I think they got a single brass nozzle in there and some other stuff. It's a great kit. And so if we could just get them to change the sprinkler head, the impact sprinkler head, that would be the thing. And like you were alluding to there a little bit, the new head that I'm pushing towards these guys to use is a very similar looking piece of equipment, but it's just a lot busier up there. It's got what's called a trip lever, which allows, that you were alluding to, you can control the rotation from, 5-degree rotation to really fast, just a certain area, to a 90-degree if you're on an inside corner of a house. If you can imagine that, sticking it on the inside corner, and you're just doing you do it on a long wall, and you can do 180 degrees. You can set the stops to do 180. You can put it on the outside corner and do 270 degrees.
Right.
And then you can still flip the trip lever up and do 360. If you wanted to do a 360, if you wanted to use it on the line to do a burnout operation where they overlap sprinklers on a line to do, to protect a line, or you can still use them there if you want to, or you can set them up on a 180 there and just wet the part that you want to wet.
Right.
So
just the green side or whatever. Yep.
Yep. And so the trip lever is the one thing. The other thing that comes with some of these that I'm looking at is the diffusion screw that will break the straight stream that comes out of the nozzle on the sprinkler head. So you're not just shooting this straight line straight up in the air and then coming straight down. You can put a little, tip of that diffuser screw in there in that stream, and it'll break it up just enough so that it'll get more water dropping sooner. So the goal here is, presently, when you do a structure, and I'm just going to pick one, on a corner, if you were to use the old sprinkler heads, which would be typically what you'd grab that orange head stake, you'd put the sprinkler head on it straight up and down, drive it in, put it on the house, and let it go round and round in circles in 360. And every turn, it's going to get the fuels wet that you want, but it's going to soak the structure. And so that we'll get into that in a little bit. But the other, if you were to do, just move up a little bit, if you were to take that same sprinkler head and use the techniques that we use on our team, which is laying the structures in a different way that you're used to. You drive the straight stake in, but the sprinkler head is on another orange stake that you lay across the top of that one. And it's a picture of it in my little booklet and in your blog article of how that's sort of done there. But you'd have to put 2 on each corner, 1 for each side. So now you're using twice as much stuff.
Right. I see what you're saying, because they're kind of just doing an arc. They're not being able to turn that corner. Yeah.
So you don't want them to turn the corner, but if you get them to turn the corner, then they're going to turn around and hit the structure.
Right.
You got to lay them backwards so they go down each side wall separately.
Right.
They come around, they go out into the world, and they come back down and hit the side wall really nice and get the fuels adjacent to the structure where you want the humidity built up, where you want the water to build up, where the firebrands are going to land to cause the problems. You want that to be moist. And the thing about the structure, there's a lot of guys out there that'll tell you, we got to soak the structures. It's not the case. If you listen to Dr. Jack Cohen, and some of his work, he'll tell you that 70 to 80% of structure loss is directly attributable to firebrand finding receptive host adjacent to the structure. The new term, I think, is a zero zone, which is right next to the house, that part of the world. The stuff that's next to the pine bark nuggets that we have there, the wooden decks, the porch cushions, the classic stuff that's all right there. The stuff that's in Minnesota, everybody likes their birch firewood so they can reach out the door and grab that. Well, there's a 10-cord stack right there.
Right.
If that gets firebrand on it, birch bark burns really well, and so it's that kind of stuff. So get in the water. So Cohen will tell you that the fire will just pulse through. The big crown fire will either pulse through and keep going, and a structure will avoid that radiant, heat contact for an extended period of time. And what you need to do, and he's not a big proponent of sprinklers. He thinks folks ought to do the work prior to the fire arrival, and I don't argue that. I don't argue that at all.
Yeah.
My house, the first thing I did when I moved in my log house up here in Minnesota, and I said I'd never own a log house, and now I own one. But anyway, first thing I did was I raked everything away from the foundation and put in gravel because I know the game. I didn't want all the stuff that was a problem to be a problem. So anyway, if we can just build the humidity up around and adjacent to the structure, really close into that zone zero stuff, and build that up a little bit, I think we'll do a better job of protecting those structures and not, in turn, soaking the structure with the old sprinklers. And I don't think there's a need to soak the structure, because unless you got like a lake right there and you got 5 jerry cans jerry-rigged together that are going to just run all the time, you're going to put water on the structure and it's going to roll off, and then as soon as the fire comes up, it's going to cook it off and be done.
Right.
If you can buy yourself some time by putting the water adjacent to the structures and the stuff that are most receptible to the firebrands, then you can come in and do a fire front following and pick up all that stuff where it's now a little bit more challenging, but it's a little safer, to get in there and do that kind of stuff. If we were to, I don't know if I'm getting off course here, but if we were to, get to this new sprinkler system, I think in the long run we'd be better off, because once again we put the water exactly where we want it, adjacent to the structure. We'd use less water because we're not wasting it. Doing a 360, we're only using it for 90 degrees, so it's a really quick turn, or a 180. I did some sprinkler tests in the snow. I have a crazy life. I'm a little bit of a nerd.
No, I watched your video yesterday when you sent that over to me, and it couldn't be any more clear from those videos why this works better. But go ahead and explain it.
Thanks for saying that, because and if anybody wants this, just ping me out and I'll send you the link to the video. But I did some sprinkler tests in the snow when I lived in Montana off the back of my Type 6. I dosed the engine tank, or the pump tank, with some blue agricultural dye I got from a buddy out there who did weed spraying. He gave me some, and I hooked up 3 sprinkler heads. The one that I'm trying to get rid of, that's in the system now with no variation, no alternatives to rotation. One that I'm talking about with the trip levers and the diffuser screw, and then the other one I grabbed was the one out of Missoula, which is a impact sprinkler head. It's a bigger nozzle. It's the one that typically comes on the music stand, but the nice thing about it is it does have the trip levers mechanism in there, so you can control the rotation. But anyway, I took all these out there. I set them up on a line with some T's, and I made short, jumper 3/4, not a full 50 foot. But some garden hose with 15 feet or something out, and I just ran them in the snow to show the pattern in the water. What happens with what the water looks like when you're spraying it, because it really shows up blue water on white snow, and it's very clear. Let me back up a little bit to the music stand sprinklers out of Missoula. That's a nice one. It's only available in the Region 1 typically, I think. That's the only place I've ever seen them. They come 4 music stand sprinklers to a box, and that's all I think you get some P cord and some 10-inch nail spikes to drive them in the ground to hold the thing down. That's all you get in the kit. And so what people do in Montana that I've seen is they'll order the Missoula kit with the heads that control the rotation, and they'll order the 1048 kits, the standard green backpack orange stake ones, and they'll toss the sprinkler heads out of that one and use all the hardware,
all the other stuff.
For the other one. So now we're doubling up, Not only are we doubling up because we have to use 2 on each corner, now we're doubling up because we like the sprinkler head in box A, but we want to use all the good stuff out of box B.
Right.
So we're just kind of doubling stuff up here. So anyway, I'll relate this story about a contract, not a contract engine, but one of those insurance engines that I ran into down in Colorado one year. They were, I want to say they worked for the company out of Belgrade, the Wildfire Defense folks. Great company. I love what the work they do. They're super great. They come in and check in with me. If they have a task force leader, they check in with me. They check in, check out. It's gotten a lot better in the last 20 years than it was 20 years ago. But anyway, these guys roll in their Type 6, and I watch them, and they set up this, they're getting ready to do structure protection around this nice house by Durango. And out pops this, I kid you not, an inflatable kiddie pool that you would get at the 5 and dime store, every dollar store in town.
Yep.
And they inflate it up, blow it up. And what's that going to hold? 150 or 200 gallons, maybe? I mean, it's not that. It's like 7 feet across and like a 16, 18 inch deep, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, something like, there's not a lot of water in it. And they put their little striker pump in there, the little 4-stroke pump that everybody carries around.
Yep.
And they set their sprinklers around the house. And all their sprinklers are just like the ones they got at the hardware store.
Mm-hmm.
They come with the aluminum legs. They come with the head that controls the rotation, has the diffuser screw on it, the trip levers and everything. And they set their stuff up, and they're done. They put the water right where they want it. They only need a little bit of water. And I saw that several times in the years past. So there's stuff out there that's getting done.
Yeah.
It's just not getting it into our system. So I'm trying to get it in because I'm tired of seeing the structures flooded. The worst case, my example, and I talked about in the blog, was a house in 17 from Montana, and it flooded for no better reason that nobody knew better. They put the sprinklers up, had a creek right there, set the sprinklers up, started running them. They left, came back the next day, fired the tanks again, filled them up, started them. They left. Fire's not even coming by. Well, fire does come through, but the structure's saved.
Yeah.
A friend of mine who's a task force leader there on that incident years ago, he said he came up to the house and looked in the window and there was water damage everywhere.
Yeah.
That was in 17.
Yeah.
And so they filed a claim,
Mm-hmm.
of course. We came in and picked up all our stuff. It wasn't me, but it was another team. They came in and picked up all the stuff and left. The homeowners filed a claim in 2021, I think is what it was. I was on an incident near there that year, and I was at a public meeting, and I heard some folks in the back of the room talking about that structure and the damage that it happened. And I went, let me go find out what's going on with that. Well, it turns out those people are still in a tort claim with the federal government to get reimbursed to get the damage repaired, and they're still not living in it.
Oh.
And that's 4 years, 5 years away, about 4 years time. And so I was like, wow, that's pretty bad. And so I took that to heart, started trying to build my case, getting going again on my project, building this stuff, putting this stuff together. And in 2023, I'm on another incident in the same area, and there's a gal from that community. And I said, hey, what's going on with that house? She goes, they're still in litigation. But they've repaired their house on their own money. They're living back there again, but they've done it all on their own.
6 years later, after the fire.
Yeah, 6 or 7 years later, and so now I haven't touched base with it since 23. What hadn't been in that area, but it's that we don't need to do that.
Right.
If we could eliminate one tort claim on a structure like that, the whole system on the money saved from that could buy all the sprinkler heads we need of the new style.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And you've been mentioning, quite a number of things, of resources that you shared with me. And I should just say that, before you sent this into us last winter, the end of last year, this is not something that I ever would have thought about. And I think that has to do, with a few things, but one of them being I just don't have that experience on the sort of construction side. Not something I would have thought of. Now thinking about it, having read what you wrote and talked to a little bit, it makes sense. Homes in general are designed to take water from above in the form of rain, right? Not from the side in the form of like a straight stream. So it does make sense that eventually it would infiltrate in, and it sounds like pretty quickly. But I wanted to just talk about some of those resources briefly, and I think we can definitely send folks directly. We'll include a link, but the title of your blog, which came out just actually exactly a month ago today as we're recording, was Structures Get Flooded, Can We Rethink Our Tactics? And that has, if I open that, that has a link at the bottom to your handy dandy that you mentioned, but then there's also this video that really, when I said that, it really showed clearly why this different kind of sprinkler it puts water where you want it, but it also, because it's not diffusing it by spraying it everywhere, right? It's not doing a 360-degree circle. It's doing a 180. The other thing that made clear that I wouldn't have really thought about, I guess, is that you can see, because you added that dye, you can see that the circle is kind of I would say noticeably lighter blue from that dye than this arc that you control, and it's much darker, so you can tell the coverage is much better. And so you're using, like you said, you're using less water, and you're putting it exactly where you want it. So that was kind of an eye opener for me as well. I could see why the folks at Technology and Development Center were impressed by that. It reminds me of a friend of mine lost his house. He's a firefighter for the Forest Service. He lost his house in 2020, and basically it was major run of a fire, crown fire. He went by the house, I don't know, maybe a half hour or something after, maybe a little bit more, but not too long after the fire had passed. The house was standing. And then he came by a little bit later and the house was gone. And he had found out, I think later, that what happened was his fence eventually caught fire. Yep. And that fence connected right to the corner of the house. So the fence just slowly, the wood slowly burned and then got to the house, and then the house was lost because there's nobody there. I mean, it was a major catastrophe that year. But that just made me think of it's not really going to be fire. I mean, I'm sure there are cases of this, no doubt. There's cases of everything. But in general, it's not going to be direct flame impingement on the side of the house that's going to make you lose the house. It's going to be the embers or the fuels that are right next to the house that usually don't happen until fire front's already gone, right?
Yeah, that's there are a couple things in there. But the Marshall Fire, they did a big FLA on that. It's a great component on that. They talk about the 10 by 10 rule. If it's a 10 mile an hour wind and the structures are within 10 feet of each other, the next ones are gone are also, unless you can stop that somehow. Mm-hmm. So the closest of the structures, the fencing, like you talked about, the wooden fencing directly, it just creeps along and goes right up there. And I've seen people cut those loose with a chainsaw. I've seen people cut decks off that are on fire, that kind of stuff. So there's that component in there. Back to putting the water on the structures. Most of the country does not live in an area where they're getting driving rains, like in Florida. Mm-hmm. Or Alabama when you have a hurricane. A rain with a name is what was described to me when I was in the Okefenokee. Yeah. When they needed to put the fire out in the Okefenokee, they needed a rain with a name. So anyway, here at Lake Superior, they get some serious winds. Mm-hmm. And that water comes off that lake with a vengeance. And so they got to have windows and doors and stuff that they've designed to take that kind of horizontal impact, like they do in Florida, horizontal rain, that kind of impact. But your house and my house, the windows are just, they're just there, and they figure the water's coming off the roof, and it's going to drop straight down, and it's not going to get driven into the structure. So the points of infiltration for the rain coming at driven like that are the same as an impact sprinkler would make if you set it on the deck railing 8 feet from the patio door. That track that at the bottom is going to eventually fill up, and it's going to start finding an easy path into the structure. The same thing is true with the windows. They're not designed for that kind of impact all the time. Siding that's not well, taken care of. I always look at the condition of a structure when I look at that and say, well, the siding's toast, or the logs have not been taken care of. They got a lot of seasonal cracks and checks in the logs, and so water is going to hit that horizontally from that impact head and go right inside on the floor. Right. On another incident in Colorado one year, we came up on a structure, and we were transitioning with another team, and so I was with the outgoing structure guy, and I was the incoming, and we looked at this house, and the sprinklers were going again. Sprinklers were all going, these round and round, on the deck railings, 2 of them directly impacting patio doors on 2 sides of the house, the Bravo side and the Charlie side. And so the left and the side and the back. And so I was like, let's take a look at this. Why are they running these sprinklers? The fire's, miles away. And he didn't know, because they're, down the lane a little, down the chain of command a ways. And so the garage door was open. The house was finished on the outside, but they were remodeling. And I said, hang on, I want to go inside and look at this and see if there's water damage already occurring. And so I went inside, duty, respect, and integrity. I wear it on my label. Going inside, I'm going to do my diligence, do what's right, do what's right, do what's right. And so I went inside and went down in the basement because it had a daylight basement you could see from the outside. And when I went down there, water was already coming out of the header area where the windows were below those patio doors. Below both patio doors were windows that were, using the load bearing of the studs coming down. It's just a builder thing. I know how to do that. And water was already coming out of those headers above those windows downstairs from the water in the door tracks upstairs.
Right.
There it was. And it was just, there it was. Yeah. And the challenge with that one, Eric, is that in a log house, when you have the cracks and so forth, like I talked about in the article, when I was a contractor in 95, you'll see the water almost right away.
Sure.
Because it's coming right through the logs. There's no interior finishing on the inside.
Right.
So the water comes in, goes right to the floor, and there you have it. So you see it right away. But if you have a stud wall cavity, like a conventional framed house, you have the siding and the sheathing and the tieback and the insulated stud wall cavities and then the sheetrock on the inside, you may not see that water damage for a while.
Right. And
it may have just been up. It may have just pool up in the cavity of the structure down in there in the insulation and sit there and cook.
Right.
Cook is a relative term. It's just going to sit there and not really dry out because it doesn't have any air. And then in the wintertime, the homeowners are going to start seeing black mold along the baseboard of that structure, and they're going to think, well, maybe the windows leaked at some point, and that's what caused it. Yep. Well, maybe the windows did leak, but maybe we maybe have put water on the sidewalls that got in to create that problem.
Right.
And so once you get black mold in your house, you're on your own because the insurance companies does not cover black mold. That was from years ago. The claims, they had too many claims on black mold, so they said, we're not covering it anymore. Typically, there's probably some out there that do, and you pay enough money, you get it covered.
Right, sure.
But typically, it's not covered. If I claim for it in my house, they're not going to cover me. So,
right.
And the other thing is, a homeowner's policy will not cover water infiltration from the outside. They're worried about your dishwasher leaking, your washing machine leaking, the shower overflowing, that kind of.
Right.
The insurance companies are worried about that kind of stuff. And not until the last 10 or 15 years have we started worrying about the wildfire, stuff.
Right.
So, years ago they were more worried about flooding structures from the inside, and now they're getting. So since there's so many claims out there now, they're addressing the wildfire issue, and that's a whole other blog for another day.
Yeah. No, that's interesting though. Yeah.
The pump class and the urban interface class does not really cover what to do. Nobody teaches what to do with sprinklers.
Not at all.
So that's a huge thing. We need to start adding some components into these new. When we rewrite these books, we need to start at least spending a little bit of time on how to set up sprinklers. Yeah. Why we don't flood the side walls. Why we need to put water adjacent to the structure. I have Jack Cohen every year come in and speak virtually to my class. The big screen for the last 4 years. He's done that for me. And the kids get a lot out of it because he talks about why homes burn,
right.
And they start putting two and two together. And so if we can start bringing that, I've been trying to encourage him to get a component into those classrooms all over the country, and then do the sprinkler training as well as to, how to set them up, why we don't spray the sidewalls, that kind of stuff.
Right.
And in that regard, 2 years ago I tried that here in Minnesota. I said, well, I might as well be the guy, and I'm going to propose teaching this part of the class differently and do sprinkler tactics out in the field. And I told the kids ahead of time, I said, we're going to spend an extra half day. The class is 3 days. We're going to add a half a day. You can come. If not, if you don't want to, you don't have to come. Because the class ended on Wednesday afternoon after they took the test. And I told them, tomorrow's a free day. If you want to come in and do this kind of work. They all showed up. All 29 students showed up. I said, we want to learn. They were in rubber boots and raincoats. We went out in the field on the school there in Grand Rapids, and I gave them all the old sprinklers with full rotation. I said, I want you to get this as close as you can to the structure without getting it. And we didn't have any structures. We used traffic cones, But they worked out there, and so we gave them some hints, and then they started building the systems that I told you about by putting the stake straight in the ground and putting the sprinkler head laying down,
Right.
so that you get the water when it comes out at least on part of the rotation adjacent. And so they understood that. And then I gave them, okay, now here's what you really want. And I gave them the good sprinkler heads with all the bells and whistles. They were like, oh, this is so cool. And so they loved it. They loved it. They ate it up. And so we did it again this past June at the Alaska Academy. And we did it again. And they all came back the next day. Same deal. You don't have to be here, but they all showed up. They get it. They understand. Because everybody's setting sprinklers up.
Yep.
And you talk to people all over the country. Oh yeah, I've set up sprinklers everywhere. Oh yeah, and you get guys and they're smart. They've had some fire. Oh yeah, I've flooded structures before, and they realize they know they
Really?
did.
Yeah.
They know they did.
Interesting.
But they thought some people are of the opinion that, well, if we flood the structure, at least it's saved.
Sure.
And
I can understand that.
I get it. Come home to 3 inches of water on your main floor and everything's buckled. You're happy that your floor is, but you're not going to be that happy.
Right. I was just gonna say I was looking at your handy dandy yesterday, and did a Google search of what else exists out there as far as a structure protection guide or handbook or whatever, and there are some, obviously, different agencies, organizations have put some together, and some of them have. Some of them are pretty developed and have a lot of different kinds of drawings and stuff. But I will say that I didn't see anything that was specific about how to actually do the thing that you're going to do. It was a lot of really good general stuff and like hazards and how to position engines and things like that. But as far as the actual job that you're there to do, I didn't see anything else that's out there right now that really shows that. And I think that's a huge deficiency. Like you're saying, like basically at this point, everybody's doing this, whether it's a historic cabin and there's just one of them and it's way out in the middle of nowhere in Idaho, or it's, like you're talking about a subdivision in Wyoming or Colorado or whatever. Like we're doing this on many of our fires. And by and large, we don't really know how to do this because we don't have specific training around that piece, like the actual structure protection part. We have training around a lot of the other stuff, but we don't really typically have training or direction kind of guides, handbooks around actually doing the very specific job that we're there to do. So I feel like it's a huge addition to what exists now. So again, I want to direct people to go and find that, because it's on our blog. You can just click there and either print it or get it on your phone as a PDF. But that would be hugely helpful. I could imagine if I got assigned to a fire, went to structure protection, and then now I had this thing to look at, and it's got schematic or sort of diagrams of homes from above and different ways to set up sprinklers. It's and including if you just have the sort of existing cache system sprinklers now that just do that 360, it'll show you what to do to make that work. Do you have any other sort of lessons to take away to share with people about structure protection?
It's we all do structure protection. Everybody on the fire does the logistics people are a huge component. I have a great relationship with my logistics guy. He knows what I want. I know what he has. I built my own order sheet as a general message for that. It's in the book. It's in the handy dandy. You can use it all you want. It's got all the NFES numbers in there if you want. The plans people are huge. They're producing the maps for you and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of components there. Liaison, you're a liaison between the team and the homeowners, so you're there. You're the IC on your engine, or you're the IC of your crew, so that kind of thing. So there again, you're the face of the fire, as we talked about, and we all do structure protection. It's the guys up on I explained it one year when we were in a public meeting, and they said, "Hunter, you're going to talk." I was like, "Okay, I get it. I'll talk." It's okay. That's one of the components of being a chief of a fire department. You have to go to public meetings and talk about stuff. So I have that background a little bit, and so we go into this meeting, and the ops section chiefs speaking before me, and they're chewing on him. You're up there burning off, our hunting ground and our, there's no need. How'd the fire get way over there when the fire's over there? And he's like, well, we're going to burn that out and do a holding line, and it's doing a great burn. He's doing all the right terms. He's doing a great burn. It's understory burn. It's all looking good. And finally, the PIO got tired of it and said, let's get structure protection up here and see what's going on. And so I got up there, and I said something to this effect. I said, guys, those guys up there on the line, they're doing structure protection.
Yeah. Those
hotshot crews, those engine companies up there on that line, they're doing structure protection. You may see all of us on our little engines and whatever running around your property and setting up sprinklers and moving your wood piles. And you see us, but there are just as many people, if not more, up on the line. And that's a form of structure protection, holding that line up there. And I said, if those guys up there, for whatever reason, can't hold that line, and that fire comes down the hill, then they have to implement my plan for the structures. And I said this, I said, and nobody ever wants to implement my plan in structure protection. Right. It's there if we need it, but we don't ever want to use it. And so I kind of ended with that. The crowd had quieted down. The other thing I like to do a lot is I'll call out people's names who I've met in the community who were there. And I say, hey, Eric, we were at your house and we were doing this kind of stuff. Well, we were over at Travis's house, and I see Travis over there on the other side. I'll say, we were over at Travis's house, and we were doing the same thing at his house, and I'm trying to pull this out. And so I sat down, and the IC gets up next, and he flat out said, hey, we never, ever want to use Hunter's plan. It's a great plan. Right. It's a great plan, but we never want to use it. But we always do structure protection. And so the thing I've gotten into lately is not just structure protection, but in critical infrastructure, bridges that are in the Forest Service or they're private bridges. That's infrastructure. A big pet peeve of mine is guardrails. I was on an incident in Arizona one year when I saw 7 miles of guardrail go down on a burnout, and I was like, all we had to do was get out of those trucks and scrape around those posts, and I just saw it. I wasn't there on that division. But every 6x6 wooden post burned to the ground. And the next morning, all the guardrail was laying there. And I'm like, wow, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of time for the folks in Arizona to put that back up. And when I was in Washington this year, we did the same thing. We did some proactive work on the guardrail. And I asked the Department of Transportation guy, I said, what does it cost to repair one of those? What's a post cost to put in? He goes, well, under a 6x6 post, by the time you get it, the old one pulled and the new one put in, it's around $500 to $700 a post.
Jeez.
By the time you get the equipment there, and then you do that times a mile. Now we're talking critical infrastructure. It's the simple as scraping around the power poles. We got tasked with up in Alaska one year to do structure protection on a Space Force installation. That was crazy. That was crazy fun. Granted, we kept the fire out of the facility, which was the primary, the best structure protection you can ever have is to keep fire out of the structures, bar none. But everybody's done structure protection in their life at one form. And if you're in fire, you've done structure protection for somebody somewhere, somehow, with sprinklers or digging a line or firing a line or fire front following or whatever, putting out a structure. If you're on an engine company that has BAs or whatever, you've done some structure protection. So it's what we do. I can't think of a fire that I've ever been on that's been totally a wildland fire. Maybe in eastern Montana, maybe. Right. But then you get into a different kind of structural problem. People out there in eastern Montana are cow people, and they have their winter haystack there. And so that's their structure they want protected, is their haystack.
Right. Sure.
Because, the haystack is not insured. Oh. And that's the feed for the next winter.
Yeah.
And they would often say to me, hey, Hunter, let the house burn.
Wow.
Protect the hay bales.
Wow.
Because if they lose the hay bales, they're done.
Right.
But if they lose the house, they can replace it because it's insured. So hay bales are a form of critical infrastructure.
I mean, if you want to talk kind of maybe to wrap up at least this portion of it, to talk specifically about those proposed improvements, because I feel like we talked around it, but maybe not like super specific, like this is exactly what I would propose.
So exactly what I would propose for the system is to change the sprinkler heads that we're using now. They're the 360, and the exact model number is 099939 all they do is 360 degrees. They come with a little hardware on the bottom of them, a couple of galvanized pieces, and a hose connection. And to switch those out with sprinkler heads that cost very similar to those other ones, a little bit more. Of course, they have bells and whistles, but ones that have the rotational control feature, which is the trip lever and the limitation devices that control that trip lever from going around and around, or whatever you wanted to do, the 90, 180, 270 look. And then they have the diffuser screw on the head that breaks that stream up so that you're not just shooting a straight stream all the time. That makes a world of difference in getting the water where you want it and how much you want. I'm going to try and do some more educational components. I'm going to try and get some videos going on YouTube on actual setups of the old style sprinkler heads, and show that.
That'd be huge.
I sent you some pictures of that this morning with my little cat laser that I attached to the head of one of those sprinkler heads. And I showed as it rotated around the laser beam that came up down beside the garage. I'm going to do stuff like that and try to get them out on YouTube or something. Just a little series of clips on how to do this kind of stuff, so that we at least, if we're moving towards the new sprinkler system, we will not continue to flood structures by a training and education component. And when I show the stuff in the videos, when I get them built, it's not going to be a hard thing that you have to do. It's going to be education that you can take and change. Maybe Hunter said, let's look at it this way. And so not every house has a clean corner where you can, there's a bush there, there's a bush or a tree. You're going to have to think out, and we do that as firefighters. We're the people, we're the MacGyvers of the world that try to figure out how to do stuff all the time. And so we're golden at that. And so people are no different in structure protection. We try to do all that kind of stuff. There again, the bottom line is we save structures and critical infrastructure, and we quit flooding the interiors of structures we're protecting.
Making the system better. Like I said, I'm very happy that we can be a part of that. And I would highly encourage you about those YouTube videos, because I know that when I was building maps and stuff like that, I'd run into an issue and I'd say, I haven't done that in a few years. I don't remember how to do that. YouTube, 1 minute, you know what I mean? And it's click, 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 done. I'm like, okay, a little refresher. When I'm working on, doing something on the car and I'm like, oh, that's kind of weird. YouTube. Yep. I mean, it really is a go-to place for those really quick how-tos. And, it's getting to the point now where, you can, I'm getting texts, images and stuff from friends that are on fires in interior Alaska now. I mean, the connectivity is just remarkable from where it was when I started. So the ability to get that stuff out there and be able to access it is huge. And I would encourage people to take advantage, like we say with everything else. It's like when you get on a new division, you get on a new fire, take advantage of the resources that you have to familiarize yourself with what you've got out there. And oftentimes that's, the QR code that gets you the ops map. So now you're a little blue dot on your phone navigating on the division, right? I mean, 10 years ago, that was revolutionary. And now it's, standard and everybody does it and it's necessary, right? Because now you know where you are. And I would say that if you're going to get in structure protection, if that's your assignment for a fire, grab this stuff and take a look at what are sort of these best practices that have been developed through 10 years of work now, and seeing the outcomes when we just kind of try to make it up as we go along, right? And end up blasting windows and sliding glass doors with sprinklers. I highly encourage people to take advantage of the stuff now that you know that it's out there.
But I think your next question was
That's great.
What's the most enjoyable deal with fire for me? And I could talking to Travis about that the other day. It would be easy to go, well, I was on this incident, and the fire was raging and we saved 12 structures, and we carried out the babies and the dogs and the cats, and we did all this great, cool stuff. And everybody has those kind of stories where they have that moment where, they're not just sitting shaded up, the fire's dying down, they're not stuck in the back. They have the moment where they're really doing, and I have a lot of those moments over the years. And a lot of it involves structure protection. But for me, the most enjoyable part of fire for me is being part of the fire community. There's so many people that I've met from Florida to Alaska, from California to Michigan. I hadn't been to Maine yet. But for all over the country, who, once you meet them, like you and I right now, once you meet them, there's a connection, and we both do fire, we get it. And so my team, my Northern Rockies team, everybody on the team is super supportive of what I'm trying to do. They get it. They go, the logs people out in the supply area of the camp, they go, oh, here comes Hunter. He's going to be doing something weird today because he's got some spare time. He's going to be grabbing sprinklers, and doing something stupid, making a video. I'm like, yeah, that's right. I'm going to do that today because I got a little bit of time. So those guys are super supportive. And so my association with Northern Rockies Team 1 has made a world. I've been on a lot of teams, and I've done some freelancing with some teams, and there's some great teams out there. But my boys on the Northern Rockies team, we cut the mustard. And they've allowed me to build a program there with that team, with the people and the stuff that I want to do with structure protection that makes it all worthwhile. And so I keep meeting nice people. I keep meeting people on fires that I put my hand out and say, hey, I'm Hunter Bell. What can I do for you? It's that thing. You had the Lessons Learned Center article the other day about names and knowing people's names. That's a big component of my whole philosophy. Is nothing else. I'm going to know some guy on that engine's in the back seat's first name because he matters. That's what you talked about in the thing. Yeah, making people feel mattered. There's an engine that in 23 from Region 3 came up to Montana one year, and Matt Edwards was the engine boss, the engine captain that year, and he had some dudes on there. They were doing their structure protection with me, and he still talks about this. He says, Hunter, those guys in the back seat, they couldn't believe that you cared enough to learn their first names, so that when they would ask him to do something, you would do. So it's the community that you build in fire, and that's been the whole thing for me. Yeah. For all the years, is the community you build in fire. There's great people everywhere. There's, I've saved some great structures. I've put out some fun line. I've done some burnouts that are cool. It's the people. It's the people that I met was on LC. Mm-hmm. It's you guys at LLC. It's the guys in the cash system that I've met that do all over the place. The fire system is cool. We got a cool group, because fire's cool. People love firemen, the whole nine yards. But we love each other. We have fun with each other out there. We like to banter around. It's fun. It's super fun.
100%. I just got back from an assignment in New Mexico, and man, what a good reminder that was of just why I got into fire and why I stayed in fire. It was exactly like you said. Everyone I met hardly knew me. I think I knew no one basically on that fire, and everyone's just so friendly. All these different backgrounds, different agencies, different states, and we're all there for one purpose, but also just that the community that you have there instantly in a lot of cases. It's like you meet him today, and by the end of the day, you're like, wow, that's a cool guy. Amazing. I don't know. I'm sure it exists in other realms, but this is where I've seen it, and you see it all the time. Thanks so much for coming on and talking about this, Hunter, and for sharing your blog with us. It's been a few months, but we got around to publishing it and getting to talk to you, and happy to be a part of moving this forward. So yeah, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, it's great. It's you guys have given me inspiration now again, with the blog and now this, and with the folks that have been interacting with me lately. My email comes with a lot of new names now that are coming in. Like, I don't know who this is, and they certainly don't know who I am. Some Gmail account. That's what I have. So
new converts.
Yeah, I should change my email to Sprinkler.
There you go.
All right. Wow, what a great conversation, huh? Man, we are so fortunate to be able to have access to subject matter experts like Hunter. Huge thank you to Hunter for being willing to come on and share his knowledge and insight and experience. And thanks a bunch to Eric for hosting and having that conversation. What a great bunch of lessons. Real tactical things, right, that you can go out and use on your very next role. The next time you get assigned to structure protection, you'll know. You'll have some tips and some tactics and also some resources. Don't forget to find that structure protection handy dandy, which was mentioned. You can get to it a couple different places, including the show notes. And use that thing, right? And let's get better. That's the point here. Get out there and do structure protection a little better than you have in the past. And that's the point, right? We're always getting better. And we get better by using the lessons, putting the knowledge into practice. All right, take care, everyone, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you for listening to the Wildfire Lessons podcast. Don't forget to head on over to lessons.wildfire.gov to get all the latest information from the Wildland Fire Lessons Learned Center. You can subscribe to our email list and follow us on social media. Music is provided by second-generation smoke jumper Steve Baker, who always likes to keep one foot in the black. Thanks, Steve. Remember, we honor through learning.